As you see, I'm kind of rushing here. I am Iowa Joe. This is the Open Network's post game show. Trying to get everything right here, get everything going. Obviously, it's not the outcome we want. Packers lose 31-29, although it could have been a lot worse than what it was. Um, Hopefully, everybody's hearing me right. Uh, it's it is what it is. It's a lot of the same stuff that we figured it was. Um, it was a lot of rust from Jordan Love, obviously, and a lot of uncomfortableness with him. It really seemed like he did not want to push off of his front leg. It He looked like he got a little bit more comfortable later on after he got hit, but he was still not pushing it like he should have. It's definitely not the outcome everybody had hoped for. I'm hoping to break down a little bit with it, and and I just want to give my thoughts and everything while it's still fresh. So, obviously, looking at the stats, uh, Jordan had a 90 QBR, 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He did throw for 389 yards with a 59% completion rating. The yards were a lot of had to get yards just because, being down so late. One of the big issues, obviously, was the uh, drops. And those are a little bit concerning, especially from guys like Wicks, who is supposed to be the sure-handed uh, uh, the sure-handed guy. He sure wasn't sure-handed today. Now, he's not the only one. Reed had some drops. Romeo had some drops. It, it was really just a mess. And I, I don't, I really don't know what else to say about it. Uh, I wish it was a little better. Trying to get all my stuff going here, and like I said, I was rushing around because I couldn't find my friggin' headphones. So defense was another letdown. Obviously, not having Jair really hurt. Not having Carrington really hurt. All right, I mean, having to have Keyshawn and Corey Ballantyne and Robert Rochelle and who's the other one? Kamal Hodden, uh, trying to cover Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson is not ideal, and it really showed. I thought Eric Stokes was fairly decent. I thought he put up a good fight. There were some moments that he did struggle, but I thought he was in good position most of the way. The big uh, uh, pass interference call was not great. The I, Again, I have to go back to, for some reason, and I know this is going to sound bad, but the reffing has been horrid. and it's across the board, but it seemed and it might be just because we're Packer fans or whatever, but it just seems like it's hurting the Packers more often than it is anybody else. So I don't know what that's all about. I the rush game did a little bit better job than what a lot of people thought it was going to be. Jacobs did eclipse the 51 yards and average 5.7. So that's pretty good against a defense that's supposed to be stout against the run. But also, they didn't give a lot of rushing attempts just because they were down late. Obviously, when you go into halftime down 21 points, 21-7, it's not an ideal situation, so you can't really rely on the run game. You've got to rely on the pass game. Going back to Jordan, his the Trent Green and I'm trying to think who it was. Trent Green and I think it was Harlan kind of called it out on the during the game that uh he he didn't look like he was driving off his front leg, and which is the left leg, which is the injured leg, so it was causing the ball to dovetail or ducktail or whatever you want to call it. He's basically throwing ducks, and that made it a lot harder for the receivers to catch it. But I think that's, and like I said, it kind of got a little bit better after a bit after he took his first hit. It, it just it's not what you wanted to see from him. We had hoped for more, but obviously we just didn't get it. Uh, Defensive side, I'm kind of jumping back and forth right now. Yeah, True North. Well, you didn't really miss much. Uh, True North Packer fan says, "Hey Joe, didn't get to watch the game, but that first half was a disaster. Good rally in the second." Yeah, the first half was definitely a disaster, and kind of like I've been jumping around with. I really think it had a lot to do with Jordan being uncomfortable and not being able to rely on the run game as much because of Minnesota being that stout run defense. Had they been able to add in a little bit more of the rushing attack and taken a lot of the pressure off of Jordan Love, it might have been a little bit different. But again, those drops really hurt. Watson had a few drops. Dobbs had a few drops. Wicks was overloaded with drops, and again, I have to say that he, for the guy that Packer fans like to say is the sure-handed route runner, those sure hands weren't here today. And was it because of the passes he was getting? I don't think so, because a lot of them were hitting him where they needed to hit him, and he just couldn't make the play. So then you got to talk about the turnovers. You had Love with 3 interceptions. Kraft had a fumble. Um, I'm trying to think. That's really the 4 turnovers, but you can't have that many. And even the defense couldn't make up the ground on it. The defense struggled through. Again, I go back to not having Jair, not having Carrington. It it hurt a lot of things. McKinney, I've been perfect so far, calling an interception per game. He came through. Quay had his big sack. Edgerrin Cooper's going to get credited with the sack, but it was really more a fault of uh, 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 Darnold just slipping and falling. Uh, per the stat line, it does say he had a forced fumble too. Uh, Keyshawn had the strip sack, which was a good play coming off the edge, and that they're the Packers had 4 turnovers compared to the Vikings 3, and usually the team that has the less turnovers is gonna win. True North. I read 6 points missed in the kicking game. Can't do that against division teams. This is one thing that really needs to be talked about, and Mike and I will probably get more in depth on it when we do our show for Tuesday. Narvison was struggling, and I have to go back to what I've said all year long when it comes to the kicking game. Had this and I tried to avoid Twitter as much as I could just because I seem to feel that I pay more attention to Twitter than I do the game if I do go on Twitter. And but I did see that some people were finally calling out Narvison, but I have to go back to the point that I made all off season and through training camp and everything else. This is where I wish we had a Carlson again. Bring him back, let him be the guy because we at least knew he would miss one, but he didn't let him affect him. He'd miss one, but he'd come back and be perfect the rest of the game. Narvison showed today that he missed one, he missed two. Now he did make the extra points. One looked awful close to me. I don't think he had any other. Yeah, he had 2 attempts and missed both attempts. So, I go back to at least with Carlson, we knew if he missed one, he wasn't going to miss more the rest of the game. But I also have to say that I put this on Packer fans for not because of the decision making. Obviously, none of us can make the decisions on this, but I put this back to Packer fans that they were so ready to cut Carlson for any reason. They hyped up Narvison, and Narvison has been doing worse than Anders Carlson. Two goalies in hockey. Why not 2 kickers in the NFL? I'm surprised they have not tried to put Whelan in as the kicker. And I know I've called this out before about you can't really say how good a person's going to be at a position just going off of YouTube videos and non-rushed attempts and non-game situations. But I do remember there is a video going around of Daniel Whelan booting kicks for a YouTube channel that were going like 73 yards. So I'm really surprised they haven't tried to just say fuck it. We'll use Whelan as a punter and the field goal kicker. So I like that idea though, 2 kickers. Although I would think you would have to do a rotation of guys on the practice squad because I don't think you can justify having 2 kickers on a 53-man roster. So you'd have to do one on the practice squad and use that person's 3 call-ups, cut him, bring somebody else in, use that person's 3 call-ups, cut him, so unless they're gonna do like they do with QBs and allow you to have an emergency kicker, I think the best bet is just to let Whelan try doing both. And so far he's been amazing when it comes to punting. I could see him doing pretty good at kicking. So I'm with you on that one, True. Uh, Other than that, special teams really was pretty good. Obviously, we saw a lot of the special teams just because of the points Minnesota was putting up. You have the punt by Whelan that who was the returner? Uh, uh, well, the Minnesota returner misjudged it, lost it in the sun or whatever, and tried to overhand catch it, and it bounced off his hands, and Melton recovered. Now, I don't like the rule that you can't advance a muff punt. That I don't get it. That should have been an easy touchdown. True North. In positive news, Tucker Craft is now unquestionably tight end one. Loved him the moment I saw him crying at the draft. I can agree with that in a way that he really has somewhat outshone Musgraves, but we all knew what Musgraves was when he was drafted. He was going to just be the stretch the seam. He was never supposed to be a blocking tight end. I don't know if there's a disconnect between him and Jordan that they just can't seem to get on the same page. And let's face it, last year Musgraves really had, and we all know the video, the TikTok video that was going around of when he finally stayed on his feet after making a catch, and Matt LaFleur was celebrating it in the locker room. He really had a problem with his balance last year. So I wonder if that's another reason why they don't target him as much, is because they're worried that if they do like a tight end screen or a short pass to him, they're not going to get much because he can't stay on his friggin' feet. The question about Tucker, and I'd have to do a deep dive into his stats, but I think this was the second fumble we had from him this year. I could be wrong, but I think Tucker had the one today, which was an easy knockout by Byron Murphy. I don't know if what Tucker was thinking when he had it. He needed to really, no pun intended, but tuck it away. But he had it held a little bit high where it was a perfect knockout for a defensive back, and Murphy nailed it perfectly. But like I said, I'd have to do a deep dive, and I really think that he needs to. I think that would be my only thing that nails him for tight end one. I think we've got two tight end twos, and the only reason Tucker would be labeled as a tight end one is because there's nobody else that can go before him. If he works on his ball handling, if he works on penalties a little bit, because he was another one that got nailed for a couple penalties today, I think he could really become that tight end one. Although I still have hope for Musgraves, just because, like I said, we knew what he was going to be, was just going to be that stretch the field type tight end. And while we've seen little bits of it, it hasn't been full on. But I always go back to the rule of three. You always wait 3 years to decide what you think of a draft prospect. Year one, the draft prospect is learning the game over again, because college is completely different than the NFL, so he's got to learn the game over again. Year two is usually when you have your setbacks or whatever, but this is where the game hits them hard and they start to take their step. And year three is when you believe that they're a true player in the NFL. Negative news from True North again. Rich Bisaccia needs to be in the hot seat. I believe so. He's not been doing well with the kickers. Other than Whelan, I got to say that I've been happy with what the special teams unit as a whole has been this year, but he was supposed to be a guy that was supposed to work well, or help our kickers, and he hasn't been helping the kickers. And so that's where they need to bring in somebody just to strictly work with the place kickers. I don't know what to do there. I really don't. They had Joseph in. He did really crappy through training camp. Now I know he went 5 for 5 the other night for, was it the Giants he's with now? but that doesn't say much. I The Giants are a shitty team anyway, so the for him to look like the best player, well, other than Malik Neighbors right now, but for him to look like that on a shit team doesn't surprise me much. But it's obvious Narvison is not the guy unless somehow he comes from this point forward and never misses a kick again. He's proven he's not the guy. I would strongly just bring Anders back unless they like this Australian kid that they have as their international uh, prospect on the practice squad. There wasn't much during training camp to say about him. He was the bottom of the rung when it came to production. So I don't know. I think they'll give him the year and see what they got next year and just kind of ride it out. But for sure, there needs to be some kickers brought in for workouts tomorrow morning. I and this is what another reason why I don't like watching press conferences. And I kind of called this out on Twitter the other day. Press conferences just need to end because you're going to go into it. They're going to do nothing but coach speak and, well, we just didn't execute properly. We need to make sure that uh we put our players in the right position to play, and they're not going to talk about injuries. It just didn't look good, or we didn't look good at this end. We got to work on it. So all you're going to get is coach speak. So press conferences just need to end. And the reason I'm on that rant is because we're never going to get the answers for anything. So if one of the beat writers goes in and says, "Hey, are you going to be bringing in guys this week for kicking competition?" I guarantee you, Bisaccia or Lafleur is just going to say, "That's a decision we'll make sometime this week." What does that tell us? That tells us nothing. Now, obviously, you can't have them go out and just rip apart his players because then the players are going to lose trust in the coach, and once you lose trust in your coach, you lose your team. But you got to do something. This is when you wish you had the old days of a Vince Lombardi or a Tom Landry or one of those guys where they had no problems going into the locker room and ripping apart their players and saying, if you don't fucking do better, we're going to bench your ass or we're going to ship your ass out or whatever. So I think that's the type of thing that needs to go down. I True, you might have been on Twitter a little bit more than me, but I imagine the whole we need to put in Malik because Jordan's just not ready yet crowd was probably out there. And I don't think that would have solved anything because that wouldn't have helped the receivers catch the ball better. That wouldn't have helped the rushing game get any better. That wouldn't help the defense get any, create any stops. That was the other thing that really bugged me was defense was looking good there towards the end when the Packers were coming back. They pulled it in to within what was it? It was 28-22. What did it go to? Went to 28-22. So they pulled it within 6 points. And the defense needed a stop, and the Packers had plenty of time on the clock that they could have went down and and I'll get to your comment here in a minute, True, but they could have had plenty of time left on the clock, and the defense, uh, I don't know, the defense just couldn't make a stop, and it led to another field goal, which put them 2 scores behind. Uh, I don't do Twitter, but plenty of calls from Leak in the first half, and that doesn't surprise me. So I imagine that that's going to be all over what Twitter is. That Malik needed to be in stop. Malik led us to 2 wins already. Again, I love what Malik did. Malik was great in what he did the last 2 weeks. However, What helped Malik succeed was that rushing game. And if Minnesota shuts down the rushing game, then Malik has to win it with his arm. And we don't know if he would have been able to win it with his arm. And then at that point, everybody in the world would have been going off on Malik on, oh, we need, what's he doing out on the field? Why isn't Jordan playing? You can never win with a lot of these people. So, uh, what else do we got? Yeah, we went into the half at 28-7. Like I said, it looked like Jordan started to get a little bit more comfortable there towards the second half. And I think that was after he took a hit. But then he was still his passes were still tailing off. Then you had the one interception in the end zone where Harrison Smith was coming off the edge and he just put it up there and Wicks had no clue it was coming to him. So do you put that off as a Wicks fault, a Love fault? What do you put that on? I I think it's a 50-50. I think Love should have just arm punted it out of bounds in the direction of Wicks. Wicks should have been a little bit more visual that, hey, we've got a safety coming free off the edge. I need to do my best to get open uh for Jordan, and it just didn't happen. So I want to go back to, and like I said, this is just to do some quick off the cuff opinions on things. Mike and I'll do a deeper dive later on when we record our episode for Tuesday. The reffing situation. And the one main one that I want to go off of is the unsportsmanlike call on Matt LaFleur. And I have to say this like I am because it's kind of in the same boat that Mike put a couple of the holding calls last week against Elton Jenkins, where even the announcers had to shut up because they were like, that shouldn't have been called. But, refs are going to do reffing stuff. The unsportsmanlike penalty. Matt LaFleur, obviously by camera angle, was trying to get a timeout called. So he ran out there trying to call a timeout, and none of the refs were paying attention to him. The one on the sideline, especially, was right there, not like right next to LaFleur, but he was within range of LaFleur. He should have been able to see LaFleur running in. If you got a coach running at you, throwing up the T and yelling timeout, 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 that should be your cue. Hey, they want to call a timeout. But then he gets an unsportsmanlike because he's out on the field. Now, they tried to pass it off. Well, he was having a fit out on he was having a fit out on the field because he was trying to call a damn timeout. I'm sorry, I'd be throwing everything in the world trying to get that timeout called because he was trying to preserve time so they could have time to make the score. I don't get it. And like I said, it's not just a Packers thing. The refs have been horrible all year. It just we notice it more because all we're doing is watching mostly Packer games. So I imagine that's going to be brought up. I would not be surprised if LaFleur gets a notice in the mail for a fine or something, and that'll be even more of a bullshit call because I think a lot of the unsportsmanlike penalties get fines thrown in with them. So it doesn't look like I got too many here. So I was going to say if there's any questions from anybody, go ahead and drop them in the chat box. But I'm not seeing anything. Let's see. Anything over on the good Twitter? I have to agree with Zach Cruz on Twitter. Jordan Love needed some time to settle in, and the Packers defense got run over in the first half. Jeff Halfley adjusted at half, and Love got comfortable. Just didn't have long enough to erase the first 30 minutes. Got to think Love passing game will be better next week. I also got to go back to I also got to go back to the fact that his receivers didn't help. There were so many passes that bounced off receivers' hands or bounced off their chest or whatever, and that doesn't help because a couple of them were close to the end zone. It would have got them within scoring range, so that doesn't help either. True North, I thought we would lose to both Eagles and Vikings, so it's not time to push the panic button, Packers fans. That's true. It's still early in the season. Thanks for the stream. Hey, I'm hoping to do more True North. I actually was hoping to get more people on, but Twitter's new rules is you have to have a premium account over on Twitter to stream over there, and Facebook's doing the same thing. But I was hoping to make an announcement. So I'm going to try to do it now. So True, if you're the only one in here, you're going to see it. Share screen real quick. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Let me get it open so you're not seeing some weird ass shit going on. Not that I'm doing anything weird, really. Well, I am doing something weird. I'm streaming to just a couple people. But with this being Cancer Awareness month, we are hoping to do a fundraiser through our merch store. Well, let me share the stream. But there's a new design for the Crucial Catch. Crucial Catch month. Similar to what. Here we go. So for this month, we're going to run it for a while, but for at least this month, we have a new design that's going to be going up in the merchandise store. It's going to be for the Crucial Catch fundraising. We are doing some discussions on what charity we're going to settle on, but for every t-shirt sold with this logo on it, we're going to donate $5 to a charity. I think we're talking about maybe doing Trisha's Troops, but we're not fully settled on it. So once this goes up, please go out, buy the shirts. For every $5, we're going to donate that to a charity. Please make sure you like and subscribe everything where you see it on, so we can get it. You know, we want to push out this stuff. We want to do some charity work. You know, obviously the guy that we want to mimic is Tom Grossi. We're not anywhere close to Grossi, but we do want to help out others. I wrote an article for the website last year where the Crucial Catch is kind of an important time of year for me because cancer has has affected my life in a lot of ways. When I was a kid, it was around when the Packers won the Super Bowl in '96. My mom was diagnosed with colon cancer. Luckily, she survived, no issues. She's still alive and kicking today. I lost a grandmother to breast cancer that spread into her throat. I lost a grandfather that had liver cancer that spread into his lungs. A close cousin of mine, we grew up together and everything, had a rare form of childhood cancer. They had to amputate his leg, and it was one of them childhood cancers he wasn't supposed to survive because it had a low survivability rate for children. But he's alive today. He's an EMT, he teaches EMT classes for one of the local college community colleges around here, and he works at one of the local hospitals. Alive, married, everything else. But I'm sure everybody else has had cancer affect them in some kind of way. This is just our way of trying to help support the cause of eradicating this horrible these horrible diseases. The emblem here, as you can see, is a multicolor emblem. I tried to incorporate all the colors of the ribbons. That way we could not just single out one or two or three or whatever. We tried to get them all in there. So please, once we post this, once we get the merch out there, please go out, buy shirts, tell your friends, whatever. Go buy these shirts. For every $5, we are going to donate it to a cancer charity. So thank you very much for any help that you get or you give. And if nothing else, just retweet our stuff, repost our stuff, follow everything so we can get this pushed out there. And hell, if you know anybody, any of the players or any famous people, let them know. They need tax write-offs just like the rest of us. So this would help out tremendously. So I think we're gonna call it there. I don't want to give up too much, and my voice is already starting to give out a little bit anyway. Again, Mike and I will cover more of it later on when we record our episode for Tuesday. So, with that, I will give our final stuff. Please go over and check out our website, ohanapackers.org. We have all our great articles over there. Carlos and Cole and Mike and Lindsay and M's recipes, and we may be having a former writer come back here with the next week. Be on the lookout for that one. Also, the merch store, ohanapackers.org/store, where all our great merch is, all our t-shirts, hats, tumblers, coffee mugs, everything else. Everything goes to support us. That t-shirt I was just talking about will be up there within the next couple of days, so please buy that one. Also on the website is all our past episodes for the Open Network. So the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, Brian's Cheese Talk podcast. We're working on the Dad's Den Titletown Talk with Mike and Justin. We're going to get them up and running pretty soon. Mike is dealing with the birth of a child. Well, not him personally, but his wife is due to give birth anytime. So we've been having a hard time getting their content up. But, hey, it's a kid. What the hell do they know? So be sure to check that out over on ohanapackers.org. Twitter, Ohana_Packers. Mine personally is at Iowa_Joe86. Follow us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Follow us on YouTube. We're going to try getting Twitch up and going. So if you prefer Twitch over YouTube, kind of like I do, go over and follow us on Twitch. Hopefully we can do some more streams. We can get more things pushed out. We want to give you the content that you want to listen to. So please make sure to tell us what you want to hear, what you like, what you don't like. If you've got recommendations for my favorite segment, the Shut the Fuck Up segment, please make sure you send us your recommendations for that. I have no problems calling out people. Mike is a very nice person and he struggles calling out people, but me, I'm a blunt asshole. I will call them out. I've rambled enough. We're almost to the 40-minute mark. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing anymore. So, as Mike would say, aloha and go pack go.